Before dawn, there is a silence unlike any other. It is not merely the absence of sound, but the pause before existence itself exhales. In that fragile interval, your pulse becomes the metronome of creation, and the world waits unwritten, unformed, listening. The ancients knew this space, and so do you, though you may have forgotten. When the rest of the world still sleeps, your observer's gaze is most potent, and the mirror of reality most malleable. It is here, in the unseen folds of darkness, that you begin to touch the hidden pathways, those quiet corridors beneath thought, where reality takes its first shimmering breath. Think of it. Every morning, when your eyes first open, reality is still soft clay. Your thoughts are the sculptor's hands. Most people wake and immediately repeat yesterday, same emotions, same worries, same broadcasts into the quantum field. And the field, impartial and infinite, simply echoes back the frequency it receives. Bruce Lipton called this the biology of belief. Greg Braden spoke of it as the divine matrix. Joe Dispenza mapped it as neurons wiring into the familiar. Science confirms what mystics whispered. The observer is not passive. The observer is the engineer, and your pulse steady, silent, electric is the key. You've had moments when you felt this without naming it. Perhaps you awoke just before dawn and sensed something different in the air. The dream lingered. The stillness was thick, like velvet. And for a fleeting second, you knew that you could choose differently, that a single thought could ripple out and change everything. But then the phone buzzed, or the mind pulled you back to unfinished tasks, and the clay hardened again. That moment was not lost, though. It etched itself into you, waiting for you to remember. I remember one such morning of my own, years ago, when everything in my life was unraveling. Bills piled up, relationships frayed, and the person in the mirror felt like a stranger. I woke one night at 4:30, unable to breathe under the weight of it all. I walked outside, barefoot, into the cool dark, and the world was utterly still. No cars, no voices, only my breath echoing in the air. And in that silence, something clicked. I realized the heaviness was not the world, it was the frequency I had been broadcasting. Like a radio locked onto static, I had been tuning into fear, and the field was faithfully amplifying it. That night, I whispered a new broadcast. Not a demand, not a prayer, just a steady pulse of gratitude for the chance to begin again. And within days, subtle doors opened. A call I had been waiting for. A conversation that healed. The world rearranged itself, not because the external suddenly became kind, but because I had remembered I was the one holding the dial. This is the secret the dawn carries. The mirror is not solid. The frequency is not fixed. Your observer's silent pulse can slip beneath the noise and reach the very blueprint of reality. The question is, will you listen to that pulse before the day drowns it out? Will you dare to engineer what lies beyond the ordinary path? Because as the horizon begins to glow, you are standing at a threshold. What you choose now, what you broadcast, will not just define today. It will carve the hidden pathway that pulls tomorrow into being. And once you step across, there is no turning back. When the first hints of light brush against the horizon, you stand inside a liminal threshold, half in dream and half in waking. This is the time when your observer's pulse is clearest, the frequency most pliable, and the field most responsive. Scientists have found that brain waves just before dawn shift naturally into theta, the same state children live in during their earliest years, where imagination and reality are inseparable. In that delicate interval, you are once again a child at the edge of the cosmic playground, where the universe bends not to effort, but to presence. Imagine a mirror suspended before you. At first glance, it appears to reflect yesterday, the same concerns, the same unfinished stories, but when you look deeper, you realize the mirror is liquid. Every breath you take sends ripples across its surface. The question is not whether the mirror responds, but what you are breathing into it. If your breath carries the frequency of doubt, the reflection wavers with hesitation. If it carries the rhythm of trust, the reflection stabilizes, luminous and clear. You are not waiting for reality to change. You are transmitting the code that instructs the field how to rearrange itself around you. Greg Braden often reminds us that the heart broadcasts a magnetic field measurable up to 3 meters beyond the body. But the truth is, it extends far further, touching everything in the invisible lattice that stitches existence together. The heart's pulse, especially when woven with coherent breath, is not merely a biological rhythm. It is a silent broadcast, a tuning fork that calls the quantum field into harmony with your chosen frequency. And the dawn is your amplifier, because in the silence of that hour, competing broadcasts have not yet filled the air. There is a reason traditions across time emphasized morning rituals. The yogis greeted the sun not to worship the star itself, but to tune into the rhythm of creation before the world's noise scattered it. Indigenous elders rose before the first bird sang because they knew the field was still pliable, receptive. Today we rush into our phones, coffee, and urgency, but the field has not changed. It waits for you each morning, patient, open, like a stage set in darkness waiting for your first line. And here, a practical initiation begins. 4 steps, simple yet profound, form your protocol to engineer the hidden pathways. First, the morning frequency check. Before opening your eyes, pause. Place your hand on your chest. Feel the pulse of your observer. And notice, what frequency am I broadcasting? Fear, anticipation, gratitude. Second, the trigger recognition. As the day unfolds, become aware of moments that jolt you out of coherence, the sharp word, the memory, the doubt. These are not obstacles but invitations, signposts showing you where the old broadcast still lingers. Third, the frequency correction. With each recognition, return to the breath. Inhale as though you are drawing pure light into your chest. Exhale as though you are washing static from the field. Fourth, the evening integration. Before sleep, replay the day not as it happened, but as you choose it to have been. You are not lying to yourself. You are informing the mirror of the pathway you are choosing to anchor. I know this might sound like imagination alone, but Nobel laureate physicist Eugene Wigner once suggested that consciousness itself plays a decisive role in collapsing probability into reality. You are not pretending. You are participating in the very act that crystallizes wave into particle, possibility into event. This is what Lipton meant when he said beliefs are signals to the cells, and what Dispenza meant when he urged us to rehearse a new future until the body believes it has already arrived. And if you ask whether it truly works, look again at your own life. Have there not been times when a single change in your mood, a single choice to breathe differently, cascaded into synchronicities that defied logic? The chance encounter, the unexpected call, the sudden relief that emerged not from solving a problem but from shifting the state within, those were not accidents. They were the mirror responding to a new broadcast, the hidden pathway opening under your silent pulse. As dawn rises higher, you are faced with a choice: continue transmitting the static of yesterday, or step boldly into the engineer's seat, shaping the invisible before it hardens into form. And in that decision, the next threshold awaits: beckoning you deeper, deeper still. As the day begins to stir, you feel the subtle difference between living as a reaction and living as a broadcast. Most of humanity wakes and immediately mirrors the external, checking messages, scrolling through news, letting the world dictate the first frequency of the day. But when you choose to breathe before dawn, when you become the silent observer tuning the dial, you are no longer reacting to the old broadcast. You are transmitting something original, something that did not exist until you decided to pulse it into being. The quantum field does not argue. It does not reject or judge. It listens, unconditionally receptive, and then organizes itself according to the instruction it has received. Think of it as a vast cosmic radio station. Most are broadcasting noise, static, recycled frequencies of worry and fear. But when your frequency is clear, coherent, and intentional, it cuts through like a pure signal in the night. You become not just a receiver of the world's programs, but a transmitter, reshaping the program itself. Science, in its most daring edges, confirms this. The observer effect in quantum physics is not a metaphor, it is a measurable reality. Electrons behave as waves of probability until measured, until observed. Your attention collapses the field. But here lies the subtlety. It is not observation alone, but the quality of observation, the frequency carried by the observer, that steers the collapse. Two people can look at the same circumstance, one with despair, one with trust, and the outcomes diverge, like two universes splitting from a single moment. I remember once, years after that first dawn awakening I told you about, walking into a meeting that had the potential to transform everything I was working toward. I was nervous, heart pounding, the old frequency of self-doubt rising like static in my chest. For a moment, the mirror before me began to warp with the familiar reflection. Failure, rejection, disappointment. But then, mid-breath, I remembered. I slowed, placed my awareness on the pulse in my chest, and exhaled coherence into the field. The difference was immediate, not because the other person changed, but because the mirror itself reconfigured. The meeting flowed, words aligned, and by the end, a door that once seemed impossible stood wide open. Looking back, it wasn't luck. It was the silent engineering of reality through the observer's pulse. This is why the protocol matters. Without the morning check, you drift unconsciously into yesterday's broadcast. Without recognizing triggers, the old frequency slips back in unnoticed. Without correction, the static compounds. Without evening integration, the mirror holds only fragments of what you intended. But with these steps, you become like a musician tuning an instrument. Each adjustment brings the string closer to resonance, and eventually, your life begins to play the song you always felt inside, but never heard fully expressed. The bridge between imagination and manifestation is not as wide as you've been told. It is as thin as a breath, as subtle as the shift from static to signal. The dawn is simply the best amplifier, the cleanest space where the pulse can echo undisturbed. And once you learn to broadcast here, you realize you can broadcast anywhere. The cafe, the office, the crowded street, all mirrors, all fields waiting to respond. And now, as you sense the day fully awakening, you stand at the edge of something larger. The recognition that these hidden pathways are not just about shaping your own reality, but about weaving into the collective field itself. What you pulse out does not end with you. It travels, intersects, entangles with others, and shapes the wider song we are all playing together. And this realization draws you onward, into the deeper corridors where the observer's pulse begins to ripple across more than just your own life. The corridors widen, and you begin to feel it. Reality is not a fixed hallway you walk through, but an endless network of intersecting pathways, luminous and alive. Each thought, each breath, each pulse you send is like a footstep in the invisible. Where you step, a path forms. Where you hesitate, the path dissolves. And what you may have once believed to be fate is often just the echo of the last broadcast, repeated until you dare to choose otherwise. Imagine standing before an infinite mirror. Each reflection shows a different version of you, one who surrendered to fear, one who walked boldly into trust, one who stayed in the static, and one who found the signal. All exist simultaneously, shimmering like overlapping frequencies. But the one that solidifies, the one that collapses into lived reality, is the reflection that resonates with your observer's pulse. This is why the silent moment before dawn is so crucial. It is the tuning. It is the instant when you decide which reflection you will embody today. Modern physics calls this superposition, multiple probabilities existing at once, but the observer collapses them into one outcome. This is not theoretical for you, it is lived each morning. When you rise and immediately think of yesterday's disappointments, you collapse into that reflection. When you breathe coherence, gratitude, possibility, you collapse into a reflection where synchronicities unfold like hidden doors. The science is profound, yes, but the practice is simple. Your pulse decide. And when you realize this, you no longer chase outcomes in the external. You stop waiting for life to prove itself to you before you choose a frequency. You flip the order. You broadcast the signal first, and then you watch reality bend to match it. Dispenza often says, "Don't wait for your healing to feel whole. Feel whole, and the healing comes." It is the inversion of the old paradigm, the realization that the mirror reflects only after you broadcast, never before. I once knew a woman who carried grief like a stone in her chest. Each day she woke with the same heaviness, the same silent broadcast of loss. And the field, faithful and impartial, mirrored it back: closed doors, lonely nights, endless reminders of absence. But one morning, she began differently. She pressed her hand to her heart and whispered a single word: "Thank you." She didn't feel it at first, but she breathed it anyway, pulsing it out into the field. Day after day, she repeated it, not to erase the grief, but to weave gratitude into the frequency. Within months, her life softened. She met new friends who felt like family. Opportunities returned. Even her health improved. She had not denied her pain, but she had shifted her broadcast, and the mirror finally reflected more than loss. This is the lesson you are being invited into. The field responds not to what you deserve, not to what you wish for, but to what you pulse. It is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying, because it means you can no longer hide behind circumstance. Liberating, because it means you can shift everything, beginning with a single breath. And as you feel this truth, the hidden pathways start to reveal themselves not as some distant mystical maze, but as the very next choice, the very next pulse. And if you follow this thread further, you'll discover that even triggers, the moments you once thought of as setbacks, are actually doorways into deeper mastery. You felt it before: the sudden sting of a word, the look that tightens your chest, the memory that replays when you least expect it. Triggers. For most, they are interruptions, evidence that life is harsh or unfair. But when you begin to see through the lens of the observer, you recognize them as signals. Each trigger is not punishment, it is a mirror showing you where your broadcast still carries static. Think of a trigger like feedback on a radio. You're trying to tune into a pure frequency, and suddenly the screech of distortion cuts through. Most people slam the radio off or blame the noise. But you, as the engineer of your reality, recognize it as information. The distortion tells you how close you are to resonance. The sharper the sting, the clearer the message. Here is where your pulse is out of tune. This is the second step of the protocol, the recognition. It requires courage, because it means turning inward instead of outward. It is easy to blame the co-worker, the partner, the circumstance. But when you pause and notice the pulse beneath the reaction, you discover the hidden pathway. The trigger itself becomes the doorway. I remember a time when I was working on a project I cared about deeply, and someone I trusted dismissed it with a single sentence. "That will never work." My body recoiled, heat in my chest, the old static rising. For hours I replayed their words, letting the field echo back frustration and doubt. But then, late that night, I remembered the mirror. I closed my eyes, slowed my breath, and asked, "What frequency am I broadcasting right now?" The answer was clear: defensiveness, fear of failure, the need for validation. And in that moment, I chose differently. I inhaled as if I were drawing in courage, exhaled as if washing the static from my cells. The trigger didn't vanish, but its grip loosened. By morning, I felt calm, clear. Weeks later, the project succeeded not because the external changed, but because my broadcast shifted from seeking approval to transmitting trust. Triggers will always come. They are woven into the fabric of human life, like tests written into the script of your awakening. But the observer's silent pulse transforms them from walls into gates. Each time you recognize the static and choose to correct it, the hidden pathway extends further. Each correction is a reprogramming, a rebroadcast that tells the field, "This is my true frequency now." Science supports this too. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, depends on conscious recognition and repetition. When you notice the trigger and choose coherence instead of reaction, you are literally sculpting new pathways in your nervous system. Over time, what once triggered you becomes neutral, even empowering, because the static has been replaced by signal. And so, the second step flows naturally into the third, frequency correction, because recognition without correction is just awareness. True engineering happens when you not only see the distortion, but retune the pulse itself. This is where the breath becomes your instrument, the observer becomes the musician, and reality begins to dance in harmony with your chosen broadcast. And as you prepare to step into this next phase, you can feel the anticipation building, the sense that the mirror is waiting for you to test its boundaries, to shift not only your state, but the very way the field arranges itself around you. And so you arrive at the moment of correction, the third step, where recognition turns into transformation. Here the observer's silent pulse becomes more than awareness. It becomes the tool to reshape the mirror. Every trigger you've recognized, every distortion you've felt, now becomes raw material for engineering. The correction is not about denying what you feel. It is about transmuting the signal, retuning the frequency, and sending out a new broadcast into the quantum field. Begin with the breath. Inhale deeply, not as a mechanical act, but as though you are drawing light directly from the field itself, filling your chest with luminous coherence. Hold it gently, sensing your own observer watching, silent and steady. Then exhale as if you are releasing static, as if the distortion is dissolving into the air around you, leaving your field clear. Each cycle of breath is a pulse inhale signal, exhale static. You are not fighting the trigger, you are reprogramming it. You are teaching your nervous system and your electromagnetic field a new rhythm. I once guided a friend through this process. She was in the middle of a painful breakup, her triggers firing every time she saw his name on her phone. Her body tensed, her mind spiraled, her field was full of static. I invited her to sit quietly, hand on her chest, eyes closed. "What are you broadcasting right now?" I asked. Tears came. "Abandonment," she whispered. "Not enough." We breathed together, slowly. With each inhale, she imagined drawing in wholeness. With each exhale, she released the story. At first it was awkward, forced, but then something shifted. Her body softened, her face relaxed, and suddenly she was broadcasting something different. I am whole even here. Within days, synchronicities unfolded, new opportunities, supportive connections, even laughter returning to her mornings. The mirror reflected the new frequency as faithfully as it had reflected the old. This is not magic, it is mechanics. The HeartMath Institute has shown that when you generate coherent heart rhythms through intentional breathing, the electromagnetic field of your heart shifts into order. That order is measurable. And because fields interact, the coherence you create doesn't stop at your skin, it ripples into the environment, influencing others and reshaping what opportunities are drawn to you. You don't have to convince anyone, manipulate circumstances, or force outcomes. The mirror does the rearranging once your pulse has changed. What's remarkable is how quickly the field responds. You may think change takes years, but often the correction is instantaneous. The moment you stop broadcasting fear and start pulsing trust, reality begins adjusting. It may start subtly, a lighter conversation, an unexpected smile, a sudden sense of relief. But these are not small things. They are evidence that the hidden pathway is opening, bending around your new broadcast. And here lies the secret. The correction is never a one-time act. It is a practice, a daily choice to tune the instrument of your being. Each time you feel the static rise and respond with coherence, you carve a deeper groove in the hidden pathway, until eventually it becomes effortless. You live in the broadcast of trust, and the mirror reflects it with precision. Now you begin to see the beauty of the protocol. The morning check sets the tone. Trigger recognition reveals where static still lingers. Frequency correction retunes the field. And soon, the day itself becomes a canvas where you can see the reflection of your choices with stunning clarity. Yet there is still one more step, the evening integration, where the final act of the day imprints your broadcast into the deepest layers of the field, ensuring that your silent pulse continues shaping reality even as you sleep. When the day fades and shadows stretch long across the world, you come to the final step of the protocol, the evening integration. This is where the loop closes, where all you have broadcast through the waking hours gathers into a final imprint upon the mirror. Sleep is not absence, it is immersion into the deeper currents of the quantum field, and what you carry into it becomes the seed of tomorrow's pathways. Most people collapse into bed replaying the static of the day, arguments, regrets, the endless scroll of unfinished tasks. And so they unknowingly broadcast chaos into the field all night long, programming the dawn with noise before it even arrives. But you, as the awakened observer, can choose differently. Evening becomes the sacred seal. It is the moment to gather the day not as it was, but as you choose it to have been. The practice is simple, yet profound. Close your eyes and replay the key events of the day as if watching them on a screen. But instead of replaying the old broadcast, overwrite it with the frequency you wish to anchor. See yourself responding with patience where you reacted with haste. Feel yourself radiating trust where fear once surged. Imagine conversations flowing with understanding, outcomes bending toward harmony. You are not lying to yourself. You are instructing the field. You are telling the mirror, "This is the reflection I choose to stabilize." I remember once traveling for work, exhausted after a day of setbacks, delayed flights, tense meetings, missed opportunities. My body ached with the heaviness of defeat. Lying in a hotel room, I nearly surrendered to sleep in that state. But then I remembered the protocol. I closed my eyes and replayed the day, not as failure, but as initiation. The delay became a chance for rest. The tense meeting became an opportunity for clarity. Even the missed opportunity became space for something better. As I breathed into that reframing, the heaviness lifted. By morning, I awoke not drained but renewed, and that very day, the missed opportunity was replaced by something far more aligned. The mirror had listened, even as I slept. Science hints at why this works. Studies on memory reconsolidation show that every time you recall an event, you rewrite it in your brain. By choosing to replay the day in coherence, you are literally sculpting the pathways of your nervous system. But beyond biology, you are also imprinting the quantum field with the frequency you wish to carry forward. The field does not care whether the replay is of fact or revision. It cares only about the frequency. And so, as you lie in the quiet of night, your observer's silent pulse becomes both anchor and launchpad. Each inhale whispers to the field, "I am whole." Each exhale seals the signal, "This is the path I walk." In this way, evening integration completes the circle: morning intention, daytime recognition, breath correction, nighttime sealing. You begin to realize that your life is no longer a series of random events, but a broadcast loop you are consciously engineering. And as the cycle deepens, you feel a subtle but undeniable truth rising. You are not just shaping your own pathways, you are weaving into the great collective mirror itself. And tomorrow, when the dawn comes again, you will stand not as a passive dreamer, but as an awakened engineer of the hidden corridors of reality. The more you live this cycle: morning check, trigger recognition, frequency correction, evening integration, the more you begin to notice something extraordinary. Reality itself starts to respond in ways too precise to dismiss as coincidence. The right person calls at the right moment. A conversation you dreaded unfolds with grace. Opportunities seem to appear from nowhere, yet deep down, you know they were always waiting in the field, waiting for the signal of your observer's pulse to align. It's like tuning into a radio station that was always broadcasting but hidden beneath static. The moment your dial finds coherence, the music bursts forth. Life becomes symphonic. The mirror no longer reflects, only fragments. It reflects a harmony that feels both deeply personal and mysteriously universal. You understand why mystics spoke of resonance, why physicists speak of coherence, why sages insisted that heaven is not a distant place, but a frequency already present within you. The most powerful shift comes when you realize this isn't just about you. Each coherent broadcast, you send ripples outward, touching those around you. Studies on heart coherence show that when one person in a group shifts into calm and centered rhythms, others nearby unconsciously entrain to that state. One steady pulse can soften an entire room. Your silent engineering of reality is not contained within your own life. It weaves into the fabric of the collective field. I once sat with a circle of friends, each of us carrying heavy burdens. The air was thick with unspoken tension, everyone talking over each other, voices sharp with fatigue. Instead of adding to the noise, I placed my hand over my heart, breathed slowly, and silently corrected my own frequency. I broadcasted calm. Within minutes, the tone shifted. Voices lowered, laughter emerged, and the atmosphere softened like a fog lifting. No words were needed. The mirror had reflected the new broadcast, not just for me, but for all of us. This is how hidden pathways are revealed, through the recognition that the field responds collectively as well as individually. Your pulse becomes a beacon, guiding others without them even knowing why. They feel lighter, clearer, more open. The pathway you walk becomes a trail others can follow, not because you told them to, but because your frequency carved the space for them to step into. And this brings you to a humbling truth. You are never broadcasting alone. Every thought, every pulse is entangled with the field of humanity itself. The scientist Erwin Schrödinger once said, "The total number of minds in the universe is one. When you correct your frequency, you contribute to that one mind." When you seal your day with gratitude, you imprint not just your mirror, but the collective mirror. The hidden pathways you engineer are not private corridors. They are part of the greater architecture of awakening. And so, as dawn approaches once again, you begin to feel the immensity of what you are participating in. You are not simply engineering a personal destiny. You are part of a silent symphony reshaping the destiny of us all. The question that lingers now is, how far are you willing to walk into these corridors? How much light are you willing to broadcast into the field? Because the next threshold awaits, and it asks for more than practice. It asks for embodiment. Embodiment is where the path turns from practice into identity. You no longer visit coherence in fleeting moments, you live inside it. The observer's silent pulse becomes not a technique you remember when things go wrong, but the natural rhythm of your being. You stop asking, "How do I apply the protocol?" and start realizing, "I am the protocol." At this stage, your mirror changes dramatically. Reality stops feeling like something you adjust now and then. Instead, you feel it flowing through you, as though you and the field are one continuous current. The separation dissolves. The radio, the broadcaster, the frequency, they were always you. And with this realization, the hidden pathways open wider than ever. Science points to this in unexpected ways. Epigenetics, as Bruce Lipton showed, proves that the environment, not the genes themselves, determines expression. But what is your environment, if not the frequency you inhabit? When you embody coherence, your very biology shifts to match the broadcast. Cells repair, hormones balance, your body begins to reflect the signal of your mind and heart. This is not mystical exaggeration, it is biology responding to resonance. You are literally engineering your physical reality from within. But embodiment does not mean perfection, it means willingness. The willingness to return to coherence again and again until it becomes your default state. You will still encounter triggers, but instead of derailing you, they remind you who you are. You will still feel the pull of static, but instead of drowning in it, you notice it as contrast, an invitation to amplify your signal. Embodiment is not the absence of struggle, it is the steady pulse that carries you through it without losing yourself. I once met a man who had practiced this for years, not through elaborate rituals, but through simple daily embodiment. Every morning, he sat quietly before dawn, hand on his heart, broadcasting gratitude. Every evening he sealed his day with forgiveness. Over time, his entire presence shifted. Walking into a room, he radiated calm. Conversations bent toward harmony. Even animals seemed drawn to him. He didn't preach or teach, he simply embodied the frequency. And because of it, everyone around him began to feel a little more awake, a little more at peace. This is the gift of embodiment. You become a living broadcast tower, silently engineering not just your own path, but the collective pathways around you. People will not always know why they feel different in your presence, but they will feel it. You will notice doors opening without effort, synchronicities compounding, life arranging itself with elegance. The mirror does not resist an embodied signal, it reflects it with precision because the signal is no longer intermittent, it is constant. And as this embodiment deepens, you realize you are no longer just walking hidden pathways, you are creating them. With each breath, each thought, each pulse, you are carving trails through the unseen, trails that others will discover and recognize as the way forward. This is the legacy of the observer who awakens fully. To become not just a participant in reality's engineering, but an architect of its unfolding. And here, standing in the quiet expanse between what has been and what is yet to come, you sense the next turn, not only embodying the frequency, but carrying the promise, the recognition that what you choose to pulse now will ripple into futures far beyond your own life. The promise comes quietly at first, like a whisper beneath the noise of thought. What you are pulsing now is not only shaping your tomorrow, it is shaping the tomorrows of countless others. The mirror you've been working with is not a private pane of glass, but part of an endless hall of mirrors, each one reflecting into the next. Your silent pulse does not end at the edge of your skin. It travels, it weaves, it entangles. This is where the responsibility deepens. When you embody coherence, you become a living promise to the field itself. Your very existence broadcasts the possibility of a reality infused with trust, gratitude, and awakening. Others, who have forgotten their own frequency, catch the echo of yours and remember, if only for a moment, who they really are. The promise you carry is not about perfection, it is about consistency. The steady willingness to broadcast light, even in a world drenched with static. I recall one evening speaking with someone who had lost all sense of meaning. He told me, "It's like nothing matters. Every day is just survival." His voice was flat, his eyes dim. I didn't have clever words to fix it. Instead, I listened, and as I did, I placed my awareness on my own pulse. I breathed coherence into the space, broadcasting calm and presence without saying a thing. Within minutes, his tone shifted. He leaned back, sighed deeply, and whispered, "I don't know why, but I suddenly feel like maybe things will be okay." That was not my wisdom, it was the field responding to the signal. The mirror had reflected a new pathway for him to step into, simply because I held the promise. This is the power you hold. When you commit to the practice, you are not just healing your past or designing your future, you are anchoring a collective future that others may never know you shaped. Like drops of water joining into a current, your frequency blends with the frequencies of countless others who are awakening, weaving a tide that cannot be stopped. This is why the sages insisted that one heart awakened can uplift thousands. The field multiplies coherence far beyond what one life seems capable of. The promise you embody is this, that the hidden pathways will not remain hidden forever, that enough of us tuning the dial, broadcasting signal over static, will make the corridors visible to all. And when that happens, reality itself will tilt, and what once seemed impossible will feel like the most natural thing. Healing, abundance, synchronicity, love, not miracles, but mechanics, reflections of a field finely tuned. And now, as you hold this recognition, You feel the promise asking for something sacred from you, not just awareness, not just embodiment, but declaration. A vow sent into the mirror itself, sealing your role as both participant and architect of this unfolding. The time has come to speak it, not to me, not even to yourself, but to the field, so the reflection may carry it forward into eternity. Now you stand at the mouth of the corridor you've been crafting with breath and attention, and it's time to speak the vow that will anchor the pathway. Speak softly if you must, or hold the phrase silently in the bones of your chest. What matters is the intent, the pulse behind the words. Place your hand on your heart. Feel the metronome there, steady and patient. Let the mirror gather close, like a listening friend. Then, with the same cadence you used in the morning breath, declare into the field the promise you mean to keep, that you will tune before noise, recognize the triggers as doorways, correct the frequency with breath, and seal the day with integration. Voice it once, voice it 3 times. Let the repetition be a ritual hammering the new pathway into the architecture of your being. You are not uttering an idle line, you are altering probability. Remember Vigner's suggestion that consciousness participates in collapsing possibility into reality. This declaration is your act of measurement, the final step that chooses one branch of the multiverse to hold steady. Lipton's work reminds us that these signals cascade into cellular behavior. Braden shows us the heart is an amplifier. Dispenza teaches that repeated rehearsal rewires the nervous system. Nobel discoveries about entanglement whisper that change in one place can mirror change across distances. Your vow is rooted both in poetry and in measurable biology. It matters. Make this simple. I choose coherence. I broadcast trust. I am the observer who engineers reality's pathways. Say it slowly. Breathe after each clause. Feel it populate your chest like light filling a dark room. If you have been carrying a personal memory as ballast, speak its transformation now. I once carried the fear of being insufficient. An old recording that replayed in every meeting, every quiet mirror. When I finally declared the opposite into the night aloud, honest and steady, the small alignments began to appear. Not because the world changed its rules, but because my pulse had shifted and the mirror obliged. That private correction became a universal instruction. You can rewrite the tape. After the vow, anchor it with a ritual response, the sacred fourfold breath. Inhale for 4 counts while sensing the morning frequency check. Hold for 4 as you witness the trigger recognition. Exhale for 4 as you perform the frequency correction. Pause for 4 as you seal the evening integration. Do this 3 times, each cycle stitching the promise into your biology and the field. Then offer a sacred response, just one breath of gratitude that acknowledges both your fragility and your capacity to transform. Finally, seal this moment with a small communal act that carries intention beyond your walls. Subscribe as a timeline shift. When you press that button, intend it as a step into a new corridor of being. Comment the keyword. You choose one luminous word that will serve as your energetic anchor, and know that every time you type it, you send a pulse back into the collective mirror. Like the video as a sacred agreement, a tiny physical gesture that confirms your vow. These acts are symbolic, yes, but symbols are the scaffolding by which the field organizes meaning. You have learned the protocol, you have practiced the breath, you have seen the mirror respond. Now you declare, you seal, you share. Stand in that declaration a moment longer. Feel the pulse steady. The hidden pathways you have engineered will carry forward, entangling with others, until what was once invisible becomes a lived map. Breathe once more and step through your observer's silent pulse already echoing down the corridor, calling tomorrow into being. And as you step through, the corridor no longer feels hidden, it feels like home. The mirrors that once shimmered with uncertainty now reflect a steadiness you recognize as your own. You realize you have crossed a threshold where seeking gives way to being. You are not grasping for signs anymore, you are radiating them. The frequency you once practiced in fragments has become the current of your existence. Look around you. The world still looks ordinary: streets, conversations, routines, but something has changed. You. Every breath is now a broadcast, every glance an instruction to the field. Even silence carries signal. People sense it. They may not name it, but they feel lighter in your presence, as though something invisible has shifted the gravity of their own lives. This is the quiet revolution of the observer's pulse. It does not shout, it does not demand, it ripples outward, rearranging the unseen until the seen must follow. The sacred promise you made has now become a rhythm, and rhythm always seeks expression. You might notice synchronicities, increasing numbers repeating, doors opening, encounters aligning so precisely they feel scripted. But this is not coincidence, it is coherence. The field has heard you, and it is answering. Each event, each reflection is the mirror acknowledging your broadcast, saying, "Yes, I heard, I am with you." And here is where your journey takes on a new depth. It is no longer about engineering your personal path alone. It is about weaving corridors for others to find. When you comment your anchor word, you are not just typing letters. You are dropping a stone into the still water of the field, sending ripples into timelines where others will feel called to awaken. When you subscribe, you are not just joining a channel. You are stepping into a shared frequency, aligning your pulse with countless others who are remembering at the same time. When you like, you are not just pressing a button, you are performing a sacred agreement, amplifying the broadcast, so the field itself can magnify it. This community, this circle you are part of now, is not accidental, it is entanglement. We are bound not by algorithm but by resonance, drawn together because the field recognized matching frequencies and wove us into the same corridor. Every action you take here is both digital and metaphysical, a signal in the algorithm of YouTube and a pulse in the quantum matrix of awakening. So let this be the seal. Take one final breath with me now. Inhale the signal of coherence, exhale the last remnants of static. Whisper your vow once more into the mirror, knowing it has already been heard. Then type your anchor word below to etch it into the field. Like this video as your sacred agreement, and subscribe as the step that locks you into the next timeline. The dawn is coming, and when it breaks, you will not just awaken into another day, you will awaken into another reality, one you have engineered with the silent pulse of your own observer's heart. The corridor is open, the mirror is listening, the field is alive with your frequency. Now, step fully in.